Hello everyone and welcome back. We are doing another double feature where we look at two films because God forbid if I decide to do two singular reviews. Two movies today. What's the theme between them? I guess you could say it's the return of an actor acting. Does that make sense? We're looking at The Smashing Machine, which is the new film from Benny Safdie and Dwayne Johnson, and we're looking at Anemone, which is the long-awaited return to acting from Daniel Day-Lewis. Two very fascinating movies. Let's start with The Smashing Machine. This is from Benny Safdie, a very acclaimed director at this point, who split from his brother a couple years ago. It was the Safdie brothers making a couple movies. Now they're doing independent stuff. This film also recently won Benny Safdie the Best Director Award at the Venice Film Festival, which is interesting. This movie doesn't seem like it could play well at Venice, but what do I know? So this is a biography of the famed wrestler turned MMA fighter, UFC fighter, Mark Kerr. Now, you might be familiar with a documentary that came out 20-something years ago called The Same Thing, about the same guy. This is essentially just retelling that story, you know? So, okay. I guess my question is, who wanted to do this first? Was it Benny Safdie, Dwayne Johnson, or Mark Kerr? Mark Kerr is still alive. He is close to the same age as Dwayne Johnson. There's not that big a difference in age between them, but Dwayne Johnson's playing a guy in his 30s, I guess? But he's not in his 30s. This movie's really weird. I don't hate it. I actually think it's quite interesting and pretty fun at times. But it's really weird, like, the combination of things to make this movie in this style. The filmmaking is very documentary style, which I don't really understand. Because if there's already a documentary about the same piece, why would you try to make a documentary-looking film in that style? I don't get the choice for that. But at the same time, there's also this really fascinating, like, early 2000s, late 90s aesthetic to it with, like, the VHS rips, the just style of audio and film techniques. That's clearly something Benny Safdie grew up liking. Very nostalgic-y and stuff with, like, the music that we're playing, the way we're making things look. I'm not against it. Like, I think there's a really interesting way to tell this story because it's like it's based on a real person, so we want to make it look authentic and real. And I guess for the most part, it does accomplish that. I feel like I'm watching a real thing, real press conferences. Everything feels authentic, like this is events that these people are very familiar with and know how to depict in this way. But at the same time, if there's a documentary on the same thing, you have to ask the question, what are we gaining from this? And I don't know if we're gaining that much from this new attempt. This is a biopic, and I don't talk about every biopic that comes out because they get very samey. And I think we're talking about this one for a lot of like the bigger reasons with like the star and the director and stuff. But I will say it's very restrained that it only takes place over the span of like 3 years. But in those 3 years, a lot of stuff you could see in any other biopic happens. He hits the high, he hits the low with drugs, he recuperates and has a fight with his wife or whatever. It's very, very formulaic and doesn't really feel interesting. I was watching this movie. I paid to see it. I bought a ticket. And I was sitting next to a group of teenagers. And I think they were expecting a, like, UFC movie. We're gonna see a lot of fighting. There is fighting in this. Like, there is, like, we're actually in the ring. We're in the octagon. There's some of that. But it's more just watching this man recover over, like, a humiliating loss because he's actually a coward deep down. And I don't know if, like, anybody's really gonna give a shit about that. Like, it's such a specific narrative about one guy in this industry before it becomes popular. So, is there an audience for that aside from the people who know? I don't think there is, because I also don't think Dwayne Johnson's, like, gonna sell seats to this thing. It's so weird. Like, it's not Creed. It's not Creed. It's just a really fascinating document that I don't love. But I respect. I think it's kind of interesting. Like, it gets interesting sometimes. Like, focusing on this very specific era of, like, the MMA and UFC stuff on the uprise. Of, like, going to Japan and doing, like, the, what is it, like the Pride 7 or something like that, and like that's the organization and all these rules that they're implementing to like really build out the sport as something people like seeing the early developments of a sport that becomes so popular today is very interesting. And shooting it documentary style, I don't think really benefits it. I think you should have went for like an above the level style, more artsy, more fartsy kind of stuff, you know? Ground level's not gonna work for everybody when we're trying to prop this up as the biggest guy. That's my other big problem with this movie and the way it presents its characters is I don't really find anybody likable or like worth investing the story in. This story is interesting, but it'd be a really good article to read on the airplane if you have like a magazine about sports. I don't know if it can sustain a full movie, and I know it can't because it loses momentum a lot through this movie. None of the characters are that compelling or interesting. They're all kind of terrible people. So let's get into like the big draw of this movie a little bit. This is Dwayne Johnson coming off of a few lows recently. You know, he had a couple big things. They kind of failed spectacularly. So he's like, I'm a serious actor now. I'm going to be a serious actor. Transformation. He's putting on prosthetics. He's going to give it his all. He's a good actor. Like, we've seen him be a good actor before. He does good here. Awards worthy? I don't know. But it's been a while since we've seen this side of him. He's confident, but subdued. He is a pussy and an annoying bitch. And is clearly the problem in his own life. And I think the angle that they really should have played up is how he just thinks he's invincible and then he comes crashing down. They want to play that up a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily work. It is just, you know, a step in the right direction for a guy who's lost it all. And I think there's some real life parallels you can make between this guy who thought he was invincible, but then he makes Black Adam and his career tanks. You know? So, Dwayne Johnson, he's alright. Trying his best to blend into a role. I hope we see more of it. We'll see. And then you have Emily Blunt, who plays his girlfriend. Insane accent work from her. And a terribly written character who they want to give agency to, but every single character doesn't really like having her around. And I'm like, what is the point then? What did we accomplish with her? I think it's because she's the only woman who's allowed to kiss Dwayne Johnson on screen anymore. Like, the only person we're allowed to see kiss somebody. Weird. And some of the other actors playing the wrestlers or the fighters, they're all right. Like, the guy playing Mark Coleman, I think he does good. He's a professional. Is he a fighter? I think he's like a fighter. And the guy that trains Mark Kerr plays himself in this movie too, so that's kind of interesting. That's a very harrowing scene with that old guy where he just like pulls a tendon out and he's just like, okay, I'm dead. And he's like, we just gotta inject you with a bunch of morphine. Okay, that's scary. I guess if you're a fan of like early 2000 fighting, it's kind of interesting, but there's not really like a mass market appeal, which doesn't need to be the case for a movie like this, but I think it would benefit from having a big star and a named director who won an award. You know, like that, it should be a bigger play than what it's gonna be. But it's just like this weird little oddity about a story no one really gives a shit about terrible people who built an industry about punching each other. But also very sanitized in how it handles all of that. A lot of F words, not a lot of emotional depth. So, The Smashing Machine. I am going to give a 7 out of 10. Now let's hop over the pond and go to Ireland because we're going to talk about Anemone. This is the new film from debut filmmaker Ronan Day-Lewis. This is the son of Daniel Day-Lewis. Have you heard of him? Perhaps one of the most prolific and important actors of his generation. 8 years ago, DDL retired, but the only person that could get him out of retirement is his son, who wrote and is directing this movie. You know what? Fine. If your dad is Daniel Day-Lewis, you do your damn well best to get him out of retirement and make a bloody movie. I'm proud of you for that there, buddy. You're doing something special. That said, this movie is pretty bad. This is set in Ireland. It follows Sean Bean, who plays this strong, capable man. He's a God-fearing man. He is headed into the wilderness to find his brother, who kind of like vanished off the surface of the world because of some stuff that happened with his military service. But he's asking his brother to come home because his son needs his father after an incident involved the military again. All right. Doesn't that sound exciting? Kind of. I mean, a nice little drama with like 4 main characters. That's not bad. Like, that's interesting. Very like talky and kind of like thinks it's smarter than its audience and like spoon feeds you a bunch of bullshit story stuff. We're really good at implying stuff. We don't have to have like every little thing spelled out for us because we can figure it out. It's not that complex. You're not that genius with this script. Yeah, it's rough. It is really rough. Looks pretty good. There's some very interesting visuals in there. In particular, I think the way we play with like the weather impacts a scene a lot. I know that's like a big element of the movie. Just like the storm is coming, we have to be prepared for it. But it's just really fascinating to see the colors change within each sequence and the way like the green looks. The greens really pop when we're in the forest. The trees, the moss, everything just looks beautiful. Really beautiful waters and wispy winds and everything. The scenery looks great. It's when the people start talking that you're like, all right, there's not much to this, is there? The storyline of like the son, I mean, it's something. Again, it almost feels like this doesn't need to be a movie. How we talked about the Smashing Machine, where this is like a good article to read. I'm like, this could be a fun short story. But you really drag it out a bit. And where we really drag it out with this movie is with giving Daddy some monologues. You know? Daniel Day-Lewis has like 3 big monologues where he just explains something about how he's feeling or about like why he hates people. He has one where he's talking about like shitting on a person. Which, look, watching Daniel Day-Lewis talk about shitting on a rapist is pretty engrossing. But when the rest of it is just so not up to that level, oof, it sucks. There's also some pretty rough hard cuts in here, and I don't know who the editor was, I didn't check. But I think there was just like this level of like, let's build up the tension and hard cut, next scene, or just next day, amateurish. And I hate to say that, but you can feel that this is a first film from a director. And that's not a bad thing. I think there is potential here because clearly he knows how to make something look good. So we can get something stronger there. Daniel Day-Lewis does pretty good. I mean, he does what the script asked of him to do. He also helped write the script with his son. So, I mean, you could blame him for some of this as well. It's rough. And I think there's some metatextual stuff you could get into where it's like, how do you get your dad to come home when your dad's Daniel Day-Lewis? Like, if you want to be a movie star and become like your dad, maybe not movie star is the wrong word, but like work in the film industry like your dad, do you get him to come back? Like, is there the metatextual thing of like the son is actually Ronan and he's like, I need my dad here because I want to do the things he did and I'm scared I'm going to fuck up? Maybe there's a little bit of that. But whew, oh man, it just drags on for a bit. Really quiet and atmospheric in all the wrong ways. It doesn't really have much to celebrate about its story. There's hit or miss stuff with all the dialogue, which is insane to think. And then just loses itself throughout most of it. Sean Bean is also in this. I like him. I like Sean Bean. I mean, it feels like it's been a minute since somebody like gave him a big thing to do. When was the last one where he was like, I'm Sean Bean, I'm leading this thing and I'm talented? Someone's got a script that's going to put Sean Bean back on the map. It's not an enemy, but somebody could do it. I'm sure. This is also like men in their 50s getting naked and running in the water and just celebrating life. Which, I mean, sure. It wants to talk about like the Irish military a bit and how like it screws over people, but I don't think it makes that point very clear and only kind of talks about it towards the end. At the very end of this thing, I don't think the ends justify the means. I don't think what you were setting up for how people behave and feel justifies the actions that they took, or what you're setting up to be like the big reveal is. Which again, it goes back to this being a first-time filmmaker. You gotta test it out, you know? If this is what's gonna take to get Daddy back in there. I'm sorry I keep saying Daddy, that sounds very derogatory. If this is what it takes for Dad to come back and work with you, or get back in the industry, it's fine. Like, it's fine, and your dad's okay at doing this thing. So hopefully, we can see improvements from everybody across the board. There's a big fish. I like a big fish. That's kind of cool. Probably the best depiction of a fucked up hailstorm I've seen in a movie. So, you know, those things are exciting. But the rest of this movie is not. So, Anemone, I am going to give a 5 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.